Do you usually do a roll call?
No.
Oh, okay. You just take notes.
Yep.
All right. So, comments and suggestions from the community. Okay, come on up and give us your name and address and tell us what you'd like to tell us.
Well, most of you I know, but my name is Mike Bonneman. I live here in Hudson, up on Orange Street. I'm here tonight representing the Save St. Croix EMS group. Most of you know it, it's the Facebook group. Right now we have just shy of 5,000 members in the group that's interested in what's going on with St. Croix EMS and what the city's up to and what they're doing. And a lot of people actually reach out and ask, you know, how's this thing going? So my reason for being here tonight is we're going to start reporting and providing more information on the Facebook page.
Good.
I'd also like to be part of this group. I mentioned that to you before. It would be great because then we can get a direct connection back to the community. I'm also the admin of SC EMS. We've got a couple of additional people that have just come on this week. They're going to help by posting information that from these meetings and the links to the videos and stuff like that. So hopefully that'll help in the community, keeping them in the loop. I've been a businessman my entire life. I've owned multiple businesses. I've helped restore a lot of businesses that have failed and brought them back to life so they could be sold. As far as EMS goes, I started with St. Croix EMS in 1983, and I retired a year ago after 32 years working for St. Croix EMS. So I kind of feel I have a little stake in what happens with it. Most of my adult life, since I was 18 years old, has been involved with St. Croix EMS. During my time with St. Croix EMS, I watched them go from a volunteer all the way up to what they are today. We used to have a board of directors. Now the reason I'm telling you this is this history is going to be important here in a little bit. When St. Croix EMS was formed, they had a board of directors. They were made up of staff members that regulated how the service operated. That worked great. I was on that board for 6 years. I was in charge of supply, I was in charge of maintenance, and spent many years as a rescue captain on the department. After St. Croix EMS decided that it was growing, and it hired its first full-time employee, they ran into problems. Here you had a full-time employee that was being supervised by volunteers that were also his subordinates. So as you can imagine, it didn't work out very well. So the decision was made to get rid of the board of directors and go with an EMS commission. Myself and 2 others were tasked with creating that board of directors, or excuse me, that EMS commission. It took us several months and pretty much developed a similar system to what is today. Now it's kind of morphed a little bit over time to make it work over the years. Throughout that entire time and all those years, one thing that was pretty much constant through this is that St. Croix EMS has had budget problems. Some years are great, other years are terrible. So when you talk about budget problems here today, this isn't anything new. This isn't anything, wow, we got problems. This is history. This has happened many times over. What we did many times is we'd back up and look and see what's causing this, because you can't fix a problem until you know what the actual problem is. That's kind of where I'm going here tonight. Almost all the problems that St. Croix EMS is having right now is related to one thing. That one thing is extremely important, and as of so far, hasn't really been touched on. I was sitting at home watching the meetings. I've got all my information together. And it was an EMS commission meeting where one of the members made a comment that got me so fired up in my chair, I watched it again just to see if what he was asking is what I heard. And the reaction afterwards was extremely important. And it all relates back to the one problem that St. Croix EMS is facing right now. The rest of them fall underneath this one problem. Now that commission member asked Brandon about the full-time paramedics looking at hiring a new one, how many applications they'd received. Brandon said that they'd received 1. And he says, you mean to tell me the city of Hudson put it out for applications, and we got 1 applicant when we pay $4 an hour more than River Falls, than Baldwin, than New Richmond. St. Croix EMS has better insurance, better packages, bigger city. And not one of those people for $4 an hour increase for the same job was willing to apply. And everybody in the room all kind of nodded their head, and they moved on to the next topic. Wait a minute. This is a sign of a problem here. This is a sign of a serious problem. They moved on to talking about moving the department to full-time, getting rid of the volunteers, moving to a full-time service. Well, in order to do that, it takes a lot of money. Well, the city of Hudson doesn't have the money. That's why this commission's here, or this committee is here. The answer is, hey, let's find the money. Let's make cuts. Let's figure out a way to work the budget so it'll work. You're businessmen. Paul, for example, if your expenses are more than your income, would you turn around and add more expenses and go, I solved the problem? Of course not. By going full-time, you're not increasing revenue. You are covering the shifts, which is one of the issues, but you're creating a huge problem of the budget. If you can't pay for it, you can't do it. All you're doing is spinning your wheels. Now we're still talking about this one issue. Brandon, when they were talking about why are we doing all this, said, well, I can't get staff to work hours. Fair? They asked Brandon, so Brandon, how many hours do you work? Brandon says the amount of hours he works, roughly 80 hours a week, close by. And everybody was appalled, going, oh my goodness. And then they moved on. What they're missing is the one problem that's caused St. Croix EMS to get into the position it is today. And that problem, to put it real simple, is want to. It's morale with the staff. No business, Paul will agree, can operate and operate successfully with staff that hate their job, staff that don't want to come to work, staff that won't do extra things. They'll come in and they'll do the absolute bare minimum. Now, Paul, you can think in your head, have you ever seen a business that'll be totally successful doing that? Exactly. That's the situation right now. I can get into it if you're interested. I don't plan on it tonight, but the morale of St. Croix EMS has been going downhill for many years. It's not Brandon's fault. Brandon's a good guy. Brandon got a mess tossed on his shoulders. I've sat back and watched for many years of what's going on. All he's been able to do is put out fires. He hasn't been able to fix anything. He hasn't been able to implement much of anything. All he's doing is putting out fires from day to day. You can't run a business when you're putting out fires. You need to grow. You need to find that one thing. When you've got a staff that's working against you, you can't go anywhere. That's the reason for this full-time thing. You say, well, we'll hire full-time people, part-time employees to cover the extra shifts. It'll work. You're actually right, 100%. It will work if you can pay for it. Question is, can St. Croix EMS pay for it? Can the city of Hudson pay for that? No, they can't. So when I sat back watching these meetings, in my head I'm thinking, my God, they're spinning their wheels. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to take this big lunge and put myself out there tonight and tell you from an outsider looking in what I see. And I hope, I see you're all very attentive to what I'm saying, and I hope there's some information that can be used here. If we look back in St. Croix EMS a little ways, there used to be good morale. We had a chief that was great. Everything was going good. As a matter of fact, St. Croix EMS's model was being featured in magazines. I think the cover page, isn't that still hanging down? It is hanging down the St. Croix EMS station down below, of a national magazine where we're featured. That's great. And now, look at the condition we're in. And it all relates back to, back then was a fantastic morale. We had EMS. We had vehicle extrication. We had water extrication. We had dive rescue. We had a ropes team for rope rescue. We had a high angle rescue team. We had a full complement dive team that could go anywhere in the area and even back up other agencies. And all this was going on and everything was working. Everything was functioning. And it was all functioning because of one thing: family. The morale of St. Croix EMS was great. It was a family. People wanted to be there. They wanted to be involved in all of these things. Over time, for several reasons, which we can discuss if you guys want, we don't need to now, that has gone away. And it's gotten to the point where it is today. Now today, the staff, I've talked to a bunch of the staff, and they feel that the city has kind of dumped on them with everything that's going on. And I agree, they have. And the city hasn't taken a step yet to start correcting that. It was the comments from them. So that kind of falls right in line with what I'm saying. If I were asked, so you seem to know all the answers, how do you fix this? Well, I tell you what, if the committee here and the commission and the administration focused on one thing, and that's morale. Getting the morale back up of the staff, getting the want to, the drive, the feeling of connection, the feeling of family back. Your staffing issues that you're here for today will evaporate because they'll want to take shifts. They'll want to fill things in. Right now we have a hard time pulling citizens from Hudson into the EMS. Well, obviously, there's all these problems. They don't want to get involved in that. We talked about River Falls, Baldwin, New Richmond paramedics coming here to work. Granted, they're making $4 an hour less, but would they take a $4 an hour increase to come where there's no family, there's no morale, you're fighting with the city, you're not, I'll say it, respected by the city council and some of those members. I'm careful on how I say that. I don't want to think too negative on that. Of course they're not. That's why we have the staffing shortage. That's why you're not filling these shifts. If morale is fixed, you get the people filling the shifts again. You get the community involved. They start coming down, they take the classes, you build your staff up. You still have your full-time paramedics, okay? But you don't need as many because you've got your volunteers. You can still have a couple of full-time EMTs for the things you need to do, but you can still be in that budgeting range. Your budgeting problems go away if you fix morale. So what I'd like to ask of this committee is to seriously take a look at fixing the system we have now. Now I know there's models out there, and anybody can write a model that says, you have problems, spend money, you'll fix it. Great. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. But you don't have the money. You can't do that. These models that they're spending a lot of money for, they're not that helpful to you when they're telling you to do something that you can't afford to do. So what I'm asking the commission is, or the committee, is to look at morale and fix it. The service could be remodeled to have either a model where the full-time people take the transfers, the volunteers handle the 911 calls, or the volunteers could handle the transfers and the full-time people could handle the 911 calls, so that it's not overtaxing the volunteers. A system like that will work because it has in the past. They talk about run volume. Run volume is people. The more runs you have, the more people you need. If you can't get the staff, of course, it fails. But if the morale's up, you've got the staff. It will work. It's budgetable. It's something that you can do with the money that you currently have. Like I said in the beginning, I'd like to be on this committee. If that doesn't work out, I'm always available if anyone has any questions. Joanne got all my information on how to get a hold of me. And, I realize you guys can't comment to it, but if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Okay? All right, thank you.
Thank you. And- All right, any comments and suggestions from EMS staff? No?
The only, if I can speak, the only thing that I have heard, and I don't know if this is an option, but I do know that our staff is really reluctant to speak in these forums based on the venue. It's a very formal setting. Getting up and standing in front of the podium, in front of the committees, a little bit unnerving. And I know that in the past, one of the initial meetings was at the fire station. So I don't know if that's an option. But you're looking for suggestions from staff, that's one of them. This is a very intimidating setting.
Okay. All right, we'll address that.
Why don't they write an email to you and then you read it for them?
And that's an option. That's an option. But there are people that would like to speak for themselves, they just don't necessarily want to be in a podium. You know, it was a pretty informal setting across the street and it was still televised, I guess is the consensus, but it's just one comment.
It was recorded, but it wasn't televised live. That was the difference. And that's why we're meeting in here, is so that it can be televised live, so that people can watch. If
I
they
don't have a
want,
problem speaking about it.
good. If they want to call one of us to speak to directly to one of us, that would be fine.
Well, Joe's position is to represent the staff.
Yes,
So common sense tells me just have them email you and then you handle it every meeting. Does that sound fair to you?
I don't have a problem with that.
Joe's
If
already
it
doing
works for the,
it.
you
works
know,
for me.
whatever works for the staff.
Yeah, well, and that's
We
why I
wanna
brought
hear
it
from
up.
them.
Now we've got a solution.
Just get it in writing instead of like, you know, it's, do we want a copy of it?
Well,
If it's an email?
If it's an
or just
email, that would be helpful.
If you want to do that, where you read it and then you could just hand it out instead of, you know, saying, we had this conversation, just make it so it's more legit, I guess.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe.
Any other comments from staff?
Do you have any comments now?
No.
Yeah, you do.
Oh, about this meeting? No.
No.
I have a question in regards to something Mike said. Am I allowed to ask, not to Mike, but just a question in general? Or is that for a different part of the meeting?
I think we should put that under EMS items for discussion only,
Okay,
and we can answer all of those questions at
Okay.
that time.
thank you.
Because this is supposed to be just gathering information.
I want to add a suggestion to the very good recommendation you made, Paul. To my mind, at least, you can, rather than just transmitting the email to us, redact the name. So those should be, to my mind, those should be anonymous, or could be anonymous if the staff member would like.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
The problem with that is that if anybody filed a Freedom of Information Act request, the name would be revealed.
Sure. And so far, I don't know that anonymity's been a concern.
Okay, it's just more
I don't want
intimidation.
to speak, speak in public.
Okay.
Yes.
And if it becomes an issue, we
okay.
could probably approach that too. But right now, I think that's a good suggestion, but I don't know that anybody's overly concerned about it.
Okay. But I think it's important that they know that we can't guarantee any anonymity. I don't, I personally won't ask for any identifying information so that they do, in order to make them feel more comfortable. But, it's always helpful if there's a mechanism to ask questions.
Sure. Is that something I should email the staff, or Brandon, or Joanne, or how would that normally be handled?
You're the rep, I mean, it sounds like he's got enough going on right now.
Yeah.
Just email not your staff, email the staff that you represent. Say I'm your liaison and I'll be your voice.
Okay.
Any questions, comments, concerns, email them to me, I'll bring them up in the meeting. just so you know, it's a transparent process. This
Well,
isn't a,
And because of the transparency, I didn't know if the answers and the replies should go back to Joanne, or if they can come to me, or how. I mean, I certainly, I would save the emails, but for this, the purpose of this committee, if things needed to go through Joanne or Joyce, or how that worked. I'm just asking.
I don't think there's a problem with you emailing it to the committee directly, since you're not a member of the committee, you're a member of the staff.
Okay.
But you should copy Joanne and Brandon and Josh on everything.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else under that? Discussion and possible action on ad hoc committee minutes of 11/9/2017. Any corrections? Is there a move to approve?
So moved.
second.
All right, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Discussion and possible action on survey of employees.
I confess that I fell down on my job. I didn't get to look at the survey this morning, and I did make a summary, but I did not communicate with Paul, and I can't remember. Is it Colleen was the other member of the work group? Well, in any case, I did not.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't think we were gonna do anything until we read all this stuff first.
Yeah,
I think we were all waiting on the Survey Monkey
It's
stuff.
Bill, Paul, Joe Elkin, and Brandon are on the survey work group.
Yeah.
all right. So when will you meet?
Let's see, I did prepare a summary.
Okay,
How about if I just give a report on my summary?
Okay.
And jump in if you see anything you feel differently. We got 23 responses, 8 identified as EMTs, 5 as part-time EMTs, 5 as paramedics, 4 as part-time or casual EMT or paramedics. I lumped those together because I really don't know. Lots of responses. I appreciated that folks wrote as much as they did. I think the committee should read all the responses. They're interesting and compelling. Surveys revealed that the point Mike was making, that morale is very low, is certainly the case. But I was also impressed that most of the staff expressed deep commitment to serving the folks they're serving and to Hudson and the Hudson area. So I was pleased to see that. Question, what's the best thing about SCEMS? 19 people said something like serving the community that I work in and love. 12 responded the people I work with. 5 responded flexible schedules, for instance, being able to go home at night. And then there were a bunch of responses that no one else repeated. What's the worst thing? Lack of support from mayor, city council, 18 responses. 4 said low morale. 4 said the management, the leadership of SCEMS. 3 said poor communication. 2 said insufficient staffing. How can SCEMS be improved? Fix the staffing. And there were a lot of specifics under that. More staff, more equitability among the staff. 5 said more funding, higher pay. 5 said better communication. 4, more support from the city. 3, better station and facilities. More accountability for EMS personnel. 2, next question, expenses exceed revenue. Do you have any ideas on how the service can become self-sustaining? Increased transfers, 12 responses. More staff, better staffing model to facilitate transfers, 7 responses. Cancel the billing contract and do it ourselves, 4. Improve preventative maintenance, reducing equipment, and that would reduce equipment costs, 3 responses. Reduce city interference, micromanaging, 2 responses. And several people said in one way or another, increase taxes. Not exactly an answer to the question. Next question, SCEMS currently has difficulty filling shifts. How can we change policies or procedures to fill them more easily? Increase pay to attract more staff, 6. Enforce shift minimums, 5. Ops manager should take shifts, 3. Improve the station facilities, People complained a lot about the facilities when they're sleeping or hanging out. 2, better leadership. 2, increased support from city government. 2, proposed 2018 staffing model is 2 paramedics and 2 EMTs on each shift, and so on. Is the proposed 2018 staffing model acceptable? How should it be changed? No is not acceptable, said 7. Yes, said 5. Yes, but it means more staff. 2, it's a good start. 2, we need a full-time, part-time model. 2, is there anything else you'd like to tell the ad hoc committee? A bunch of things. There were some interesting responses. I won't read them, but I will distribute them. And some observations that I thought were also interesting. One person said that let me make sure I get this straight. The compensation model is based on towns to the east, and the deployment model is based on Twin Cities services, and they don't go together very well. And there's more explanation for that. So I thought that was interesting, and I'd like to know more about that. One person said the number of calls do not justify 2 ambulances from a business perspective, that Lakeview was right about that. But Lakeview put profits in front of life and safety, and as we all learned, the citizens of Hudson didn't care for that. Goes on to say that ensuring that we have 2 ambulances available 24/7 requires increase in taxes, and so on. One of the things that leaped out at me was how many people said that we should be providing more transfers, which is a revenue generator. And I think that's one of the topics that we should address, is a way to facilitate more transfers.
And then you got the face-to-face question.
What's the face-to-face question?
Question 9.
Oh, yes, I didn't record the answers to that, because the instruction was for people just to email you if they were
Yes.
willing.
Did you receive any?
Yes, I've got about 7, 8 people who said they would be willing to speak with the committee.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So, all right, so we need to talk about facilitating more transfers. We need to talk about how best to approach the people that are willing to talk to us.
Right.
So, which one do you want to start with?
We have I'm a new kid on this, in this business, so I'm very ignorant about all these things. I'm sure there are lots of factors on the transfer issue. Can we talk about that a little while, just for my own information?
Sure.
And maybe some other folks?
Brandon?
Yeah, the primary concern with transfers right now is staffing.
Right.
The majority of the time, if we're turning it down, it's because of staffing. It's not because of the level of care needed. We provide the highest level of critical care service. So it amounts to getting bodies in the door and staffing the trucks.
Okay.
Last year, I estimate it was probably about 200 transfers that we gave up due to staffing.
Wow, that's a significant chunk of
We did
revenue.
400. So that kind of gives you an idea where we're at.
I'm sorry, I cut you off. You
We did
responded to 400
400,
transfers
yep.
and gave up on 200.
Right.
We wouldn't even be having any of these conversations if we were generating more revenue. I mean, when we're passing up 200 calls, not calls, transfers, that's got to get fixed.
Yeah, and our average reimbursement on those calls is in the $580 range
Yeah,
across the board. So that's a pretty significant increase in our revenue, if we were able to get those.
true.
So it comes down to staffing.
Mike suggested using volunteers for that. Is that a possibility?
It's hard to tell the volunteers when they have to work.
And that's why we're kind of where we're at, is we put out the December schedule, and it's a lot of holes. It fills in over time, but we can't count on it. We need something that we can actually depend on to be able to facilitate these calls.
Tell me the timeline of a typical transfer. Say the hospital calls and says, we need you to take somebody to a nursing home. Is that a fairly standard kind of call?
Yeah, more frequently, we're going to the larger facilities in the cities from the hospital.
Larger hospitals, you mean? Okay.
So generally, we're going to get a call from the hospital. They usually expect us up there within 10 to 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So trying to get people to come in and do that.
At what point
It's
do
gotten
they
more
just,
difficult
at what point do they stop trying?
with,
Calling you guys, calling Hudson, and say, you know what, they're too busy. If we're giving up 50% of the calls for a transfer, is that been hurting you? Where they don't call you, they'll just call, I don't even know what kind of competition it is. They call the other hospital and say, come pick them up?
no, so right now, there's no contracts when it comes to these transfers. They're able to call whoever. Generally, they call us first because we're closer and usually able to serve them faster. If we're unable to, then they call the next service, and primarily they use either Lakeview or River Falls.
Okay, so I clearly understand, 200 times this year, you've had to say, no, we can't do it because we don't have the staff.
That's last year's numbers.
I'm sorry, last year, thank you.
Yep, 200 times we were unable to, and we.
So they are
were-
still calling you first, at least?
Yes. There are times where we won't get the call if we come in and take one out.
Yeah.
A lot of times they'll call somebody else right away, knowing that we can't serve them immediately.
And
A lot of times
you're
we
getting
can-
500 some-ish dollars per transfer?
Roughly, yeah. That's the average across the board.
And how long does it take to do a transfer?
We're tied up roughly an hour.
And how much is each, on average, you have two people in the truck, right?
Correct, yep.
And how much are they getting paid?
20 for one of them and $9.50-ish for the other.
And it's an hour?
Yes.
Pretty good rate of return.
Yeah, we gotta
So
nip that in the bud immediately.
How do you have some folks who are on call, is that right, to fill a shift?
the current model, yes. If they don't live within 4 minutes of the station, they can stay at home. Otherwise, the crews stay here.
Okay. What's the time if they?
4 minutes.
They live within 4 minutes of the station, they can stay home? How many folks meet that criterion?
Not many anymore.
Yeah. You know your business a great deal better than I ever could, Brandon, I understand that. And I'm pretty naive about this, so please forgive my questions. Would it be possible to expand that time frame a little bit to include more potential people to be on call and have them meet you at the hospital if it were a transfer?
And that would require us working with the hospital. It's something we could explore.
Yeah,
There are other agencies that do that, and they allow a 30-minute window.
yeah.
But it's something that we have to get the hospital to buy in on as well. And they have to agree to that time frame.
Yeah, I mean, I would think it'd be to their advantage.
And-
If
and
they're
right
calling
now-
River Falls or New Richmond, that's gonna be an increase in time anyway.
Yeah, and right now that has been an issue. We'll have a crew available, not technically in town, but they're coming back from a transfer, and they've given it to other services because they didn't want to wait the 20 minutes that it would take to get back. So we're kind of at their mercy on that one.
The problem is, from my experience, is that there's a reason they're sending them from Hudson Hospital to Regions or to United. It's a critical
It
patient.
can
that
be a
they-
pressing issue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't have the capabilities here in town, so
Right.
they have to ship them to the cities as
understand.
quickly as possible,
Yeah.
so. Or are other agencies that use a dedicated transfer crew, they're not a 911 crew, so they've got a little bit more leeway. But on the other hand, from the hospital's perspective, and I don't pretend to speak on the behalf of the hospital, but they need these patients to get to the cities
Yeah.
quickly.
Now.
Yeah, there's a reason they're
Yes.
doing that, so it's kind of a double-edged sword that.
Right, so time is clearly of the essence, at least in many transfers, I assume. Yeah.
One of the staffing models that Brandon is working on and plans to incorporate January 1st is having minimums that each staff person is going to commit to and a particular day, so that there would be fewer unfilled shifts and more commitments on a month-to-month basis, so, and even on a week-to-week basis. So what is the staff reaction has been to that request?
There's only been a couple of replies so far. They have until December 8th to get their,
Okay, but not,
Responses into
has
it.
anybody come to you and said that, given an opinion on this?
quite a few aren't thrilled because it does limit the amount of hours they can work. And it does kind of hinder us in a way that we have staff that are working over the 24 that would be capped at. And there's staff that aren't able to commit to a shift a week.
Mhm.
So it kind of shoots us in the foot a little bit.
So one of the considerations is that because of benefits, they have to have no more than 30 hours a week for part-time employees. And they've capped it at 24 so that if the shifts go over because they're in the middle of a run when the shift is over, or they have training or something like that, then they've got some leeway to put in those for that 30-hour limit. So some of the employees would like to work those extra hours as much as possible.
Sure.
And then there are others who have full-time jobs elsewhere,
Right.
and they're just filling in here and there. Now, if the people with full-time jobs, if they just want to do one shift a month and commit to that, is that acceptable, or are you asking for one shift a week?
The minimum that we're requiring is 24 hours per month. And
24
that would
hours
amount to
per-
2 shifts per month
2 shifts for a
to
month?
stay
Okay.
active.
Mhm.
Why?
And that's the minimum that we've set for our casuals.
Yeah, but why?
It was what we've been able to get traditionally, was kind of the max commitment certain people could commit to.
Okay,
And sometimes that's hard to achieve,
yeah.
Right.
so.
I mean, is there some external reason why you couldn't allow folks just to do one shift a month instead of 2?
We'd have to,
Training issues or?
we'd have to, proficiency, you start to lose things if you're not doing it.
I see.
And we'd have to increase the number of bodies we actually have.
Yeah,
We'd have to go a little deeper there. So there'd be added cost with that as far as outfitting them, continuing education, stuff like that.
How many employees do you think you're short right now?
At least 2 full-time positions and probably another 10 to 12 casual part-time. And that would comfortably allow us to fill the schedule.
And you what?
We'd be comfortable with the schedule then, being able to fill it.
do you have budget to fill those positions? Do you have budget to fill any positions?
We have what we have for next year budgeted. So
Okay,
the 2 full-time positions are budgeted.
okay.
And then the part-time staff will go hourly.
Well, you have the budget to fill the schedule.
Yeah. In those
Okay.
medic EMT trucks, 2 trucks.
Okay.
We just have to get the bodies in to do it.
Yeah, are you confident you can do that,
It's gonna be difficult.
given the
I'm-
most recent searches, yeah?
Yeah, it's gonna be very difficult. And it really does hurt us with those ones that are working those extra hours. They kind of count on working those hours, and now they're gonna have to look elsewhere
Sure,
and have the potential to maybe leave,
right.
so.
Yeah, one of the things I saw over and over in the surveys is, why would you come to work at Hudson when you know the mayor wants to sell the system and there may not be a future here? And saying lots of people come here and work for a while and get the training and experience and then go somewhere else that's more secure. So
There's
that's a tough situation to hire anybody into.
It
There's
makes
also an election too, in April. That could fix things.
Could.
I And yeah, like Mike said, it comes down to morale. It makes it difficult,
Yeah.
real difficult to fill shifts.
It's the morale issue can be fixed because they saw what the general public wanted.
Right.
So that part,
But the biggest problem is, I mean, the staff has sat there and heard promises and promises on top of promises on top of promises that nothing's come true yet. I mean, we're still fighting over a building that we were supposed to be in 2 years ago. And now, you know, from the last meeting, it sounds like that's pretty much a hope and a wish now. It depends on what's gonna happen with the fire department. I mean, so you get, you know, they give us a little and people get, oh, okay, you know, this might work. And then all of a sudden, you know, they yank the rug out from underneath you. And now it's like, well, we'll wait and see on how the fire department study comes back first.
but if you're completely honest with staff, the staff will follow you and not worry about the city. Because they'll know that you are handling that.
Correct.
That's, in my experiences, I've had staff follow me from leaving one place to another place because you're honest with them. So if you're fighting the city, you know, standing up for your staff with the city, they're gonna follow you. And, you know, people are gonna wanna work here, people are gonna wanna, tell other EMSers, because it's just like cops, firefighters, EMS people, you guys all hang around each other. You guys all have that lingo and the codes and the numbers and everything. And they'll tell people that this is a good place to work for. It's, if you work with your staff, they're gonna follow you. And as long as they know that you're fighting for them with the city, they're not gonna worry about the city. Because if you're not nervous, they're not gonna be nervous. I mean, it's kind of like a parenting role almost. We gotta work on that aspect maybe a little bit.
I mean, the biggest problem was the past, I don't know, how long has it been since talks went on? A year and a half? About a year and a half. Me and Brandon were stifled so hard.
Right.
I mean, we couldn't even go in and, we couldn't even tell staff what time our meeting was. I mean, I mean, I think that's to the point to where it hurt us. I mean, we got stifled so bad, you know, staff come ask, what was your, did you go to a meeting today? Yeah. Well, what'd you talk about? Can't tell you. Anything get resolved? No, can't tell you. I mean, and it's week, and these were weekly, and it's week after week, you know, after week, staff's, you know, hearing that. You know, and finally it just came to the point where I told the EMS commission, I go, I'm done lying. And they're gonna hear what, I go, you can't lie to these people anymore. They're
Yeah,
not
you can't lie to your staff.
they're not stupid. I mean, and that's the problem that we're fighting back now. I mean, it's, you know, meetings again lately. What'd you guys talk about? Well, same stuff we talked about last week. What'd you decide? Nothing.
And these are the internal problems. The stuff I see is teaching at the paramedic program in Eau Claire and taking transfers to Regents Hospital in St. Paul. From St. Paul to Eau Claire, all I hear on a daily basis is, oh, you work for Hudson? That's still a thing? You guys haven't been sold yet? And that's been done with, the contract got voted down months ago. But I tell my students, I've got really good paramedic students, apply in Hudson. Oh, you guys are still open? And these are people I interact with regularly. We go for a transfer to the cities at Regions, and Alina or St. Paul Fire or somebody will pull up next to you and go, St. Croix EMS, did you guys get sold? So that's kind of voicing what's happening from why nobody's applying here.
And Joe, there's people that want that to happen.
Absolutely.
And it's up to you guys to pull up the bootstraps and say, no, this is what's really happening in Hudson. This is our community.
Yep.
These are the people that are standing behind it. I mean, that's on you guys, because guys like me, the only EMT paramedic I know is you guys, Jen Kerner, that's about it. I'm not gonna be out there recruiting for you, because I don't know who to even talk to. You work with these people. So do you, Chief. Josh, you guys all work with them. You gotta recruit. It's like, to put it in simple terms, it's like me trying to find a good cook. You just talk to your cooks and they know other cooks. You guys know a bunch of new EMTs, hungry EMTs, kids that want to get their feet wet. Help them out. You know, we saw the community stand together and basically say, it's not for sale. So you know you have that. Have some confidence and just move forward. there's an election coming up. I know that's gonna be part of a touchy subject, and it's gonna go in your favor. So I get these staff, generate more revenue, stop turning down revenue, and a lot of these problems they're gonna go away, and I can get back to my life. Right? Simple.
Well, but it's not, Paul, because
It's
the only way-
time, Joe.
the only way we can generate revenue is to take transfers. The only way we can take transfers is to hire a bunch more staff.
That's what I'm saying. Get them hired. Start talking to your people.
Come with me tomorrow, let's go recruit.
Come on.
It's the want to, like I said, they want to work, they have to want to work. The morale has to be fixed. Brandon and I talked about this for years, this isn't something new that it is.
How many shifts do you work? Yeah.
Can you step up to the, can you step up to the podium so that people can hear you in the audience?
I'm retired now from EMS. Unfortunately, my health made me, I had to, but
Yeah.
after 32 years, there were times when I put in 60 hours a week. There were times when I'd put in 8 hours in a month. It's kind of it's a real mental business where sometimes you need to take mental breaks.
So be transparent. If somebody asked you, a kid, 23 years old, said, I want to be an EMT, where should I go?
What would I tell them?
Yeah, right now, today.
I'll be honest, I mean, St. Croix EMS has got so many morale problems. I'd love to say, hey, go to St. Croix EMS, but I'm not sure I'd be doing them a favor in their new career because those morale problems have to get fixed. This place won't be here without them, without it fixing them.
So
There's your problem.
how do we fix them?
Josh brought up a lot of good points. Even the surveys that you put out, morale. The staff has to trust these guys. These guys, Brandon and I and Josh had a conversation out on the apron this summer. And I looked at both of them and I said, here's the deal, guys. As far as all of the staff here, you guys are mom and dad. You have to take that role as the parent, and I think somebody else mentioned that too over
I
there.
did, yeah.
Paul did. Take that role of parent and kind of get all of them facing in the same direction. We've got to get them feeling good about being here. We've got to feel them good about being around each other. Because right now, that isn't there. In years past, we'd have morale go up, we'd have morale go down. There was at one point in St. Croix EMS, we actually had a morale officer that was part of the staff. And what their job was, they, before the meetings, would set up times with barbecue grills and buy hot dogs and whatnot to get the people together. They'd plan events, different things that way, like at the schools and things like that, where you get a group of them, they'd go into the schools. The point wasn't so much to go into the community for the community, it was for the staff. Back a few years ago, the option came up to build a ambulance race car. I don't know if you guys heard about that or not. And I went to Kim, who was the chief at the time, and said, hey, can we do this? I said, it's not so much that we get to go out and race. It's that we're going to take our staff that's troubled, and we're going to get them to work together. We're going to take people from the community and get them together and work together. And Kim approved it, so we did it. We got a hold of a Metro Mobility van, and all of us got together, and it was fun. They broke windows out, they swung hammers, they cutting torches. We had people in the community volunteer to build a roll cage in it to keep us safe. Another community member volunteered to put stickers on it so it looked cool. And there's a picture hanging down on the EMS station of the whole group of people that were involved in this. And the money was insignificant. There really wasn't any money. And then we all went to the track and we had fun. Unfortunately, there was an accident with a different ambulance and they had to shut it down. But the point being is that everybody came together on a project. Years ago, we used to have, every now and then on Saturdays, a Clean the Bay parties. And then the service would buy lunch. So everybody would show up and we'd clean. And then we'd all have lunch and then everybody go home. It wasn't that the station needed to be cleaned. You could hire a janitor, you could go down and do it yourself. It was getting the crew together and getting everyone together. That stuff doesn't happen. And like I said before, don't blame him. Don't blame Brandon. He's been putting out fires. He hasn't had time to do this kind of thing. Brandon and I have had discussions about creating a position of a morale officer. I asked Brandon at one time, I said, in the training budget, is there a little extra money in there where if you created that you could send that person to classes or seminars? And he said, yeah, I'm sure we could find it. That might be a good option to build the morale back up. When the morale comes up, you're going to fix your staffing problem of rolling the trucks out, your transfers, that's going to get fixed. Of course, there's budgeting issues that need to go with it too. They need to be compensated. But, you know, maybe here's a good way of putting this. That I'm going to key in on something that Paul had said. Preparing for tonight, I talked to a few friends of mine in the community that are all businessmen. Now, they don't understand and know the model of a volunteer. They know employees. I have a job to do, so I'm going to hire this guy, this guy, and this guy, and I'm going to tell them what they need to do, and I'm going to pay them to do it. And if they don't do that job, you're fired. And I'm going to get another person to do it because this needs to get done. The EMS field is 100% different. It's a volunteer thing, just like the Lions Club, just like the fire department. Without that want to, they're not going to do it. With the want to, you can suggest it, and suddenly 10 people will be on it, and it'll be done. It's a totally different model than most business people know in their mind. These people aren't being paid money as a reward for the work they do. They're getting a sense of accomplishment for the work that they've done. They're getting a sense of family for the work that they've done. And that's gone away in St. Croix EMS, and that needs to come back, that sense of family.
Brandon, I understand and appreciate what you're saying, Mike, and I agree that the morale is terrible and we have to do something about it. You have roughly 40 staff, you told us before. How many are employees and how many are volunteers?
Everyone's considered an employee now.
Okay.
Since about 2005, I think they changed the classification.
So everybody gets paid, you have no people contributing volunteer time?
It's just different forms of compensation. Some are receiving a stipend and others are hourly.
Oh,
So the
okay.
stipend people are basically volunteer.
Right.
But they're getting paid.
Right.
They're receiving a stipend.
No,
How
they
does
just
that
get,
work?
it's X amount of dollars per 12-hour shift worked.
And how much is X?
It varies by job class, but it's roughly,
120,
yeah.
120 of
Oh,
work
okay.
12 hours.
Oh, so that's pay.
So it's like
I was waiting
850.
for you to say like $40 or
It's
something.
No,
pretty
it's-
poor pay though for 8 hours, yeah, okay.
I can do it.
Huh. So does the city count them as employees?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was changed in the city ordinances in 2012.
Okay.
They were all recognized as official employees then.
And that was a good thing to do? To move from a volunteer basis to an employee basis, employee plus stipend?
Right, yeah, it was at the time. Compensation was an issue, and that was one way to increase compensation. Getting people in the door. We couldn't get volunteers.
I see, okay.
Hudson's too big of a city to sit back and wait for volunteers to
Yeah,
show up.
I
Right.
don't
We have too many
disagree.
runs.
Exactly. And that's why I respectfully.
It's a city.
I love what you say, Mike, but we're not in a volunteer atmosphere. And what this
Let me qualify that real quick. I'm not saying go to 100% volunteer service. What I'm saying is get your full-time paramedics, enough of a staff to control it, a couple of full-time EMTs, and all the extras can be your volunteers. All of those transfers that you turn down can be the volunteers, and that's the stipend person that I'm referring to.
Yeah, I know, I get it.
Okay,
Those are the ones that will take care of those extra calls, or if somebody's sick, they jump in to fill your schedule, stuff like that.
do you have a hard time finding people to fill those stipend slots?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Is that something relatively new?
Not really. Probably the last 2 years for sure, definitely.
Okay.
There's even farther back.
If we were to get the remodeling done on Ward Avenue, what impact do you think that would have?
And I think that'd be a huge step in the right direction and show the staff that
There's a commitment.
there's a commitment there. There's some buy-in. Right now the conditions downstairs aren't that great. I mean, it's not good for operations to have equipment in one building, us in the other, going back and forth. We have equipment stored at Ward Avenue right now. It doesn't flow. And I think that'd be a huge step in the right direction.
Okay, so a high priority is the Ward Avenue remodel in order to show that we're committed and improve, and that would improve morale, which would boost your shifts. We have to be careful that we are following the purpose of this ad hoc committee, and so we have to make sure that everything feeds into improving the revenue, and improving the financial picture. So we've got to make sure that everything that we're doing gets tied back to that. Because our purpose is moving St. Croix EMS toward financial and operational stability while maintaining a community-based service model. But, and we're sticking with this because morale is a huge part of this.
Right.
And it's affecting the revenue because we can't pick up those transfers.
Right.
So, but I just want to make sure that everybody's on board
Appreciate it.
with this, that we don't get sidetracked into
Right.
things that we're not supposed to be doing. All right.
What are the prospects for a Ward Avenue remodel, would you guess, being on city council?
I think they're good right now. The last that was said at the city council meeting, all right, so the plan at this time is to take that Ward Avenue site and build a firehouse there. And we talked about whether or not to have an EMS facility attached to that. And I think that will be the ultimate goal, will be to put up an EMS facility along with that. But it would be a lot more cost effective to take the building that's already there and remodel it. You're talking about $500,000 versus several $1,000,000. And then that would give us some time to work on getting that EMS facility added on to the fire department, or the firehouse.
Thank you.
So, is there any action that we need to take on the survey besides putting it back on the agenda for next time with a little more in-depth discussion? And then I'm thinking that we should, all right, our next item is discussion and possible action on work groups. And should we form an employee morale work group?
We only have 4 committee members at the moment.
That's an issue, yes, and that's, all right, let's go down to EMS items for discussion only. So, all right. Colleen Hammer, as the committee knows, has resigned from the committee, which means that we are looking for another committee member. The mayor makes the appointment to the committee, but it's up to us to recommend people. So we are looking for recommendations. We want someone who's got, Colleen had a really strong financial analyst background, and that's what we're looking for, is somebody who's got a good financial analyst background. So so if there are other people that we should be considering, then we need to be looking at them, because the goal would be to get this filled as soon as possible.
I have someone in mind, I have not talked to him though.
Okay. Then, how soon can you talk to them?
5 minutes after we leave the meeting.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, applicants should, let me know who the applicants are so that we can figure out, I think it'll have to go on our next, can you put that on our agenda for the next meeting, would be discuss applicants for Colleen's position, or open spot on ad hoc committee. And that way we can get it on the, so then the process would be, I would make the recommendation to the mayor, and then the mayor would, it would have to be on the agenda for the council meeting. So the goal would be to get it on the council, the next council meeting after our next meeting, which is December 13th. Okay, so. All right, any more information on the surveys?
No, I would encourage committee members to look very closely at this.
Oh, yeah, I've looked at them and read them all. And, but if you could forward your summary to me, that would be helpful. The next EMS commission meeting is December 13th at 7:30 in the morning, and I have to give a report. And so that would be helpful to have that summary to distribute.
Sure, please double check what I did.
Why don't you send it to Joanne so that she can send it out to everybody on the committee?
Okay.
And then,
Okay.
and then we can send corrections to Joanne, and then she can
Okay.
send it out to the EMS commission for their
Okay.
agenda.
We did guarantee respondents anonymity, and I have pulled some quotes and put them in here, so I think this should be for the committee only. Does that make sense?
Okay, so then
Or should I pull those out?
Take the quotes out, send over your findings, and that's it.
Okay, I can do that.
The best thing out of the thing is that the EMS people do want to work, and they do love Hudson, and
Yeah.
they do love this community.
I agree.
So the
And morale
the worst
is
case
terrible.
scenario is not that bad. It's just morale, which can be repaired.
Yes, we have to convince them that.
They love what they
Serious.
do, and that's the most important part.
Okay. All right, so work groups. So we've got the survey work group, so are we going to send out another survey then based on what we've got? Or do we, oh, no, we were going to interview the people.
Yeah.
How do we want to do the interviews, or does the survey work group want to handle that?
I think that if you interviewed these people, it'd have to be, can we be off camera? Can we be not in this setting where it's one-on-one?
Yes,
Is that
as long
legal?
as the whole committee isn't there. Okay, so if more than 2 members of the committee, well, okay, so now we're down to 4 members of the committee. I'll have to find out about that.
Does it have to be 2 there? Or?
No, I think it could be individual. I think it can be one-on-one.
How many were there that wanted the one-on-one?
There are about 7 or 8 of them.
So if we divided it to 2 each, because these guys have a lot of other commitments too, and
It's
then,
different people asking different questions, though. I think you got to run through them all.
okay,
I would like to run through them all. I would.
Okay,
I have questions I'd want to ask.
what about you, Bill?
Is that, you want to ask them all the questions in the survey, or you want to meet with every individual?
I want to meet with the individuals and, for lack of better words, have like an interview process with them and just find out what's going on up here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you want to make arrangements with Joanne then to
Yeah,
handle that?
yeah,
Good.
I have your contact info.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very good.
Okay, and I'm happy to work with whatever works for other folks. I'm mostly retired. So, yeah, and either Paul and I together could do it, or.
Yeah, we could.
if
We
time
could do
doesn't
that,
work.
right?
I have to check on that, because now that we're down to 4 members on the committee,
Yeah.
then we've got quorum issues.
But it shouldn't be a quorum.
Well,
Is Joe considered
no,
are we board
Advisory.
members? What are we called?
okay, so the committee members,
Okay, so we're committee members. Is Joe a committee member?
no, he's an advisor.
So if Joe and I did it, that wouldn't be a quorum.
Correct,
Okay, but if you and I did it, it would be a quorum.
yes.
I get it.
Or, and it might not necessarily be, well, all right, since there's 3 of us here,
That's a quorum.
we,
3 out
yeah,
of 5.
two people can vote on something. And then we've got, and you can also block a vote with 2 people, because we've only got the 4. So I'll have to check with
right.
Devin on that and make sure that we're following the rules until we've got the fifth person added to our committee.
Okay,
So we need to fill that as soon as possible,
yeah, I agree.
okay? All right, so I will check with Devin on that.
I think we should hold up with only 4 committee members. I don't think we have room for another work group.
No, okay. But one of the things that I had envisioned was that we would have more community involvement, not just the people on the committee, but getting the committee. You know, Mike is interested in working. Is morale something that you would like to work on?
Absolutely.
Is there a way that we as a committee can encourage him to work on that issue?
Yes.
So how do we want to direct him?
I think this next month, my hands are full with these interviews. I don't say it's kind of, this is the sad part about politics, everything drags.
It's very difficult to get things going because you've got to meet, you have to wait till the meetings in order to accomplish something.
Right.
Yes, that slows everything down.
Mike, at least, can you keep coming to the meetings?
Absolutely.
That might be good enough.
Okay.
I'm curious what Joe's gonna have to say in the next meeting. I know some of his staff, some of, not his coworkers, are gonna have emails. I know it. I mean, I just feel it. So,
Good.
I'd like
Well,
to see what happens there.
Okay.
Uh,
All right.
This interview thing, it's just, I know that we can hire within. It works in so many different business platforms. Just, let's get these interviews done.
Okay.
That's my goal.
All right. And then, Brandon, why don't you and I sit down with Mike? How does that sound?
That works.
Okay.
Just let me know.
And then we can just summarize our discussion, bring that back to the next meeting to fill you guys in.
Okay. Yeah, if you, can you set that up then?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right.
Do we have to take any action on the finance work group that was formed?
She's not here.
That's the
So
problem, is that, yeah.
undoing
Colleen-
it or
That's
pull that
why-
off the table?
Yep. She
Pull
was
that
the
off.
counter.
So, we're going to have to redo the finance work group.
So we'll wait till we fill the position and go from there.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to. All right, any other discussion and possible action on work groups?
If there's a specific item on any of the agendas that Brenda needs to attend, she'd just like to know.
Okay,
She'll attend when she's needed.
all right.
So if you have questions ahead of time,
Yeah, we'll let her know.
Cool.
Yeah, because we don't want to tie up her time in the evenings if she's not needed for these. Yes, Bill?
Is there an org chart for
The city,
the EMS,
EMS?
or maybe for the whole city? Maybe it's online. I should go and look and see if it's online.
I don't know that there's an org chart that really,
no, and our departmental one is outdated. That's
Yeah.
one of the things that's being worked on right now is a new policy manual, so.
Okay.
you'd like to see an org chart for the
Yeah.
EMS?
Yeah, I would. I don't mean to make
Is that
anybody
something that-
write one, but. if
That's
there is
something we
one,
can
I'd
draft
like to see
in tomorrow, so it's
Okay.
easy enough.
it. Yeah, that'd be great. And just sketch it out if you want to. It doesn't have to be very formal.
Yeah, we can do that up and get that out.
Okay, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, especially with Paul doing the interviews, it's good to have, be able to check people off on the org chart as he talks to them, too.
True.
Okay. Any other items for discussion only? So,
Did you have something, Joe?
Yeah, Joe did.
I just had a clarifying question Mike had brought up earlier when he spoke about we make $4 an hour or less, or is that an accurate statement? I know it's not your quote, you're getting that from a meeting, but is that even accurate?
From the salary survey that Brenda did, that's what it showed, that the services to our east are making about $4 less.
Okay.
How about compared to the Twin Cities?
Significantly less than
They're
than
significantly
the
higher.
cities, yeah.
Yes, that's what I would have guessed.
So the other thing to take into consideration is they're also working more hours in a year. On average, they're working 2,900
Which,
to the
Okay.
east. So,
uh-huh.
I just bring it up because I think there's that misconception that we make so much money here. It's not accurate. And you can, no, and I know it wasn't yours, but I had heard that I heard that at the meeting, the same meeting you heard it at, and I was scratching my head wondering if that was accurate.
and with the last full-time position that we were making the offer on, that's why we lost out. It was a significant hourly increase from what we were offering, plus a $5,000 sign-on bonus, something else that we're not able to offer.
Sure.
So we lost out on that.
I just wanted to say it out loud is all. And make sure everybody understood that's not.
Let me make sure I understand. The person you were trying to hire was getting a much better offer from somewhere else.
Correct.
Okay,
Very qualified applicant, but
frustrating.
we just couldn't make it work.
Are you about to advertise again for your 2 openings?
We currently are.
Okay.
And that closes the 13th, I believe, of December.
Okay. Good luck.
Okay, another item for discussion only was, would it be worthwhile for us to look into either a consolidation or a consortium, building a consortium of the local EMS services in order to have a larger, being able to buy a larger volume of supplies as a group and get.
We already participate in that.
You do,
In
okay.
group buying through North Central and a Savick buying group. They're
Okay.
both.
Would there be any other advantages to further developing a consortium or consolidating services? Would it be useful to consolidate the billing for, so who all is in this buying group?
It's a state
Oh, it's a state buying
organization.
group,
Yep.
okay. So I was thinking that along the lines of taking the local services like River Falls, Baldwin, New Richmond, us, and, that was one of the things that was in that study that was done, was looking at
Right.
ways of,
One of the last group projects was they did an RFP for billing several years ago, and we weren't able to jump on board with it because we had just signed our contract.
okay, so we've all got different contracts.
But if we would have, they were looking at lower rates if multiple agencies came on board with the contract at the time. We just weren't able to due to our current contract.
And were they able to consolidate with the other?
Several agencies did sign contracts. They're all independent contracts, but they got a better rate because of it, doing it at the same time.
And are they still doing that?
They're still currently with that group.
Is that something that we could look at joining and,
We're sending the RFP out for multiple agencies or billing services to look at. We might get a better deal from another group, but that group still does bill in this area, and we could still contract with them.
Okay, so that might be one of the players.
Could be.
Good.
And I've heard good things about them, so I hope they put in a bid.
is there something more that we could do? I mean, would it help to actually join that group with their billing? Or do they have a contract that we wouldn't be able to get in on because
Yeah, they're still all individual,
oh, they are individual contracts?
right? They just worked together to form a
Yeah.
deal.
Okay. And are there other ways that we could leverage the other services in the area as a group to improve things?
I'm not sure right now. I know there's been a couple of studies that have talked about it, but they've all had, they've identified complications where it wouldn't work for one reason or
Right,
another.
because of the pay differences and
Yeah,
and
there's-
different models, things like that. But is it worth exploring?
Something we could,
Should we be
Definitely discuss.
discussing this?
Mhm.
Should we put it on the next agenda?
Sure.
Okay.
Are there other
Heard.
possibilities you can think of, Brandon?
I I guess it would be just more opening the conversation with the neighbors and see what they're,
Yeah.
what they're up for.
Has the River Falls study come in yet?
It is. It was just published recently.
Okay.
I got a copy of it today. I just started
Oh,
looking
today,
through it.
okay.
So,
All right, could you distribute that to the,
yep, it's on their website as well.
oh, okay.
So,
Could you get a link out to everybody?
Yes, I sure can.
Thank you. Because that's worth looking at. All right, the two studies that I sent out, what happened was I was contacted by a former employee of this service who's now working in, that's Plainview, Minnesota. And he said that Minnesota has a state group that does their own studies. And the study that they did was very helpful. He said it really turned around their EMS group. So he encouraged me to contact somebody that works for that state agency, which I did. And she sent me a copy of the Plainview study, and we had a conversation for probably about half an hour. She said that she's willing to discuss topics anytime and help us out. And she also sent me the Lake City study, which she felt was probably a little more comparable to our size and situation. And so I thought that the first step would be for all of us to read through those studies and see if there are some nuggets in there that we might be able to incorporate. And I haven't had time to look at them yet, and I apologize for that. But I'd like to have that on our next agenda as discussing the, so the Plainview, well, the River Falls, the Plainview, and the Lake City studies, and seeing if there's anything that we can get from there. And if anybody notices anything that in those studies as they're reading, send a note to Joanne to send to the group so that we can take a closer look at those areas. Okay. Anything else for future agendas? All right, and our next meeting is here at 6:30 on Wednesday, December 13th. Will everybody be able to make it?
So,
Okay. Anything else? Is there a move to adjourn?
so moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
2-0.
Meeting adjourned.